You said you've been coaching for 37 years here at Falls City Sacred Heart. What do you remember about that first year?
Well, I took over a team that only had 3 wins the year before, so expectations weren't super high, but we had a lot of success right off the bat. We made it to the district final, and you could just kind of tell that the whole attitude of the school kind of changed in a more positive way. I think when you have good athletics and good activities, the morale of the school kind of follows that. And I just think it was a real positive. And then the next year I started coaching football and track and became the AD. And we had some really good kids at that time, young kids that were coming into the high school. And we had a lot of success right off the bat.
So you've been coaching for 4 decades. Looking back, what do you take away from that? What are the things that you remember the most about your time coaching?
I just think kind of the way that you see kids develop. You kind of like seeing the whole process of if you can get kids to work hard and get them to work together, you can really accomplish a lot. And I'd say that's the thing that kind of stands out, I think, with the kids that I've coached is that they're really dedicated and they really play for the team. We've had some really good athletes, but not very many at all that have gone on and played any college sports. And I think that's just kind of a testament of how well they come together as a team and are willing to sacrifice.
Along that same kind of lines, it seems like sometimes athletics gets cut at the high school level when they need to save money, when the school system needs to save money. What's your argument as far as the balance of athletics and academics and how much athletics can contribute to the overall development of a student?
Well, I kind of mentioned the morale already a little bit, but I just think that there's so many lessons that kids learn from athletics. Being part of a team, working with others, the commitment it takes. I think it's pretty easy to see that the kids that are involved in activities and sports tend to be the kids that then are involved in everything else, and they're the leaders of your school. I think it keeps kids in line. You have to perform in the classroom so that you get to play on the field. I think all of that goes hand in hand, and I think it really does end up making kids more well-rounded, and it helps them for the future.
I want to talk to you also about your faith and how that has influenced you as a coach. How would you say it has?
Well, I went to Falls City Sacred Heart. Before we moved back to Nebraska, I went to a Catholic school in Danville, Virginia. And then my wife is a Hartington Cedar Catholic grad. So we both came from strong Catholic families. I really wasn't planning to be at Falls City Sacred Heart maybe but a year or two. But, as your own children then start going to school and you really believe in your school, you want your kids to be in our school. So our 3 kids all were at Sacred Heart from, kindergarten through their graduations. And that's probably the biggest reason of staying here felt that this was a great place for them and a great place for our family. And just the whole belief in the school is probably why I've stayed here, along with being able to coach. I like being able to coach year-round, coaching all 3 sports. I mean, it takes a lot of energy, but I still have it right now. And I just like being part of the kids' lives through athletics.
And how do you specifically integrate Catholic faith into practices, into games?
Well, I think, if anybody's seen me coach, I'm not a yeller and a screamer. I'm just kind of a guy you go about your business. If you work hard, things are going to go well. And I kind of think it's the same way with your faith. I mean, we expect our kids to perform at a high level, but we want them to be good Christian men, good Christian women. And there's just so many ways that I think you can show your faith through things like sports, sportsmanship. All those things are part of it. And I think that a great way for athletics to be part of your faith is just that commitment to each other, just as we have a commitment to our faith.
And you touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about how sportsmanship and character play a part in being a man or a woman of faith?
Yeah, I just think it's all part of the Sacred Heart way. I kind of sometimes mention that, we just kind of do things in some people might think it's kind of a boring way even, but our kids, they really do understand the formula, I think, of hard work, treating others as you want to be treated. I think we usually have really good leaders who learned it from the kids before them. Because we're a K-12 school and all of our kids are in the same building, our seniors are walking down the hall, walking by the first and second graders, and those little kids look up to these high school kids, and they know that. And I think that kind of holds these kids to a high level, that they represent our school. And I think we have kids that really look up to these older kids.
Are there times on the field or before or after a game where the players will pray?
Yeah, we pray quite a bit. We actually say a prayer every time we break the huddle as a team. We pray when we drive into the town that we're going to play. We always pray when we arrive back into Fall City. We pray before the game. We pray at halftime. We finish prayer. Every practice we finish with a prayer. And again, it's just kind of ingrained in what we do. It's the kids expect it, they know it, and now you even see more and more teams after games pray together on the field or on the court. And we're talking public schools too, that sometimes the kids get together and pray, and it's really changed. I really didn't see any of that in my first years of coaching, but now you see that more and more, which I think is great.
Through 37 years of coaching, can you talk about the relationships that you've built with players and how important that is to you?
Well, I'm to the point now where I'm coaching the kids of the first kids that I coached. So being the CAO and trying to keep the school going financially and relying on people to be generous and good stewards, a lot of that kind of dates back to when I was coaching them. And now I'm coaching their own children, and they believe in Sacred Heart. At the time when they're kids, they probably weren't thinking that they would have such an important role in keeping our school going. But now a lot of those same kids that I coached, they're now adults, and their kids come to Sacred Heart. And I just think, again, Sacred Heart, we're small enough that it really takes a lot of work, a lot of volunteerism for our school to succeed. And even in sports, it kind of takes that same kind of work ethic. And I think that's kind of, poured out into other things that we do to keep our school going.
How important has the support of your family been throughout your career?
Well, they've had to really sacrifice. When you're coaching 3 sports, you're basically coaching year round. So, they've made sacrifices. We've planned family vacations around camps and practices. There's certainly things that I missed because of my coaching. Even like watching my own daughters play volleyball, it was hard to get to a lot of those games because we had football practice. So it was hard to get to some of those away games. But at the same time, my wife is a coach's wife. My kids are coaches' kids. They grew up around the gym and stuff, and there's a lot of positives, I think, that have come from that, but there have been some sacrifices too.
After 37 years, you probably start looking back on your career a little bit and thinking about what you take away from that. Talk a little bit about what the impact you want to be remembered for at Fall City Sacred Heart. How do you think you're going to be remembered as a coach?
Well, I hope a coach that kids wanted to play for. I mean, again, I'm pretty low-key. I've probably become more low-key over the years that, you just try to spell it out to kids that if you do these things, if you follow this plan, there's a good chance we're going to have some success. But I hope the kids that I've coached enjoyed playing for me. I always tell them that we want it to be fun, but to me, the real fun is when you get that reward of having success. Not always necessarily winning, but when you know that you put in the work and then you had success, to me that's what makes it fun. And I really enjoy watching a team and how it maybe starts here, and then during the season we're trying to get to here. That's what's rewarding as a coach, is watching that team evolve from maybe not being very good to, you get to the end of the season and you're playing in a state tournament.
Can those teams, the teams that maybe don't win as many games but make a lot of progress, can that be as satisfying to you as a coach as a state championship?
Definitely. I mean, you're not going to win a state championship every year. You're not even going to play in the state tournament every year. But just getting kids to realize that we want to improve each week, each practice, each game. I mean, I can see that as really the whole key of why it's so important that we have things like sports. I think it's no different than how they're going to have to live their lives, whether when they're going to college or whether they have a job. You got to be on time. You got to work hard. You got to do your job. That's kind of the thing that I kind of try to get our kids to understand, that the things you're learning now, these lessons, are going to carry over to your real life when you're an adult.
You were recently inducted into the Peru State Athletic Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you?
Well, Peru's a really good school. A lot of teachers and coaches go to Peru State. Many of our faculty are Peru Staters. It's close by here, but some of the best coaches I've coached against are Peru State grads. So, Peru is in many ways like Falls City Sacred Heart. It's small. It's really kind of a family atmosphere, and I think that was a great thing for me. And a lot of the lessons I learned at Peru is what kind of made me the coach and the teacher that I am today.
Anything you'd change about the last 37 years?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's times where you think, well, maybe it's time for somebody else to coach this sport or that sport. But I'm always trying to get our kids to realize that by being a multi-sport athlete, it's going to make them good in the sport that they think is their best sport. And I feel like if I'm no longer one of the track coaches, I'm kind of like taking the spring off, and I don't want them to do that. So I feel like trying to work with them through all 3 seasons, and then in the summer, it's going to make them better, and I need to do my part there too.